Helen Ryder, welcome to Australian Musician.
Hi, Greg. Lovely to be here.
The new album Love Over Hate has been completed and awaiting release on November 7. What's this twilight zone like between completion and release?
Great question. This album has taken a while to actually put out. Look, so the backstory is that I had a car accident, and the strange silver lining of that car accident is that I had about 2 years of recovery where I literally didn't have to work. I didn't have to, a lot of musicians, we do our gigs, but we might have a little day job as well. And I had the luxury of waking up every morning and just going to my piano, going to my guitar and writing songs. And so, I loved that time. And when all of that was finished, COVID hit. So then there was another pause on the album with COVID. Couldn't get into a room with other people. So I demoed all of the songs myself at home. Simple, humble demos, took them to Bruce, eventually Bruce Haymes. And so it's been a very long gestation for this to come out.
Yeah. 11 songs on the album. Why did you choose Love Over Hate as the title?
As I was writing the songs and I was in this space of, quiet, solitude, looking out the window, looking at nature, checking in on the news every other moment, I started to look at the world, at what was going on in the world, and it seemed to be changing a lot. Um, and I had time to reflect on my own life and where I was at. And so the title for me, as I was writing the songs, every album, we could call them all love songs, right? But I wanted them to be love songs that were not just personal, but also about stories of other people and the world that we were living in currently.
Yeah.
And so that's how the title came about.
11 songs on the album. Were there many more you were considering?
Yes, I have. I have works completed and works in progress. So there are more. Yes, and actually, I recorded 12 songs. So there is one that we didn't put it on the album, and who knows, I might release it afterwards.
Okay. In general, what's the starting point for a Helen Ryder song?
Hmm. Okay, that's an interesting question. Okay, so while I was writing this album, I'd write a song and I literally would, it was a big moment of experimentation for me because I hadn't written songs previously. And every song I did, I went in with, okay, so sometimes it was just the lyrics, and then I would play around with chords and on the guitar or piano. Some lent themselves really to piano, some to guitar. And I would say that was also because my chordal knowledge is not that advanced, and so I wanted to keep it fairly simple. So, are you asking how I wrote the songs, or how did I start?
I suppose sometimes, as you said, looking out the window, there might be a thought, and that might be the starting point for a song.
Okay, so definitely thoughts. Yes, uh, the second song on the album, "Before You Give Your Love Away," before you give away your love. Sorry. Um, that was me reading a story in the news and just being completely sad and upset about this story about domestic violence. And I wanted to try and understand how a person could get into that situation. So that's how that song came about. Another song, "Weight of the World," was really about children in war zones and seeing something on television, one of news or whatever, and just thinking, I felt compelled to write this story. Other songs were personal, other songs were about other people and the love or the hate that they were going through, and how really we have the choice to choose love over hate. That kept coming back to me a lot in the stories, the lyrics that I was writing.
What about your musical influences growing up? Do you think they've come through in your own music?
Thanks for that question. I believe they have. And in fact, for most of my musical career, I've been a singer and I've been singing other people's songs. And so I was quite surprised when I started singing melodies and thinking, well, where did all these come from? And how come I knew what chords to put against, a note that I was singing? And I feel like it's been my development as a singer over the years. That's where this has all come from.
Yeah. So who are the voices that have inspired?
Oh, yeah. So I guess early on, some of the Laurel Canyon sort of, your Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, Neil Young, the Beatles, Dusty Springfield, Adore, Bobby Gentry. I do this show separate to this album around Bobby Gentry, and I love her voice. And I actually love the fact that a lot of her songs are stories and not personal, although I believe she put the personal into those stories as well. And actually, I think some of them are quite political when you really start looking at the lyrics and you think about the times. So, yeah, who else? Bob Dylan, of course. I think I might have mentioned him. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. You've got some pretty heavy hitter session guys on the album: Bruce Haymes, Roger Bergadaz, Shane Riley, Steve Hadley. How do you know these guys?
Well, that goes back to my first album. So, my first album, I was not singing live much, and I bumped into Vicar Ball, and she said, "Come and do some supports at Bennett's Lane for us." And so I thought, oh, okay, well, I'll grab Bruce because I'd worked with him previously. And we did those two shows, and it was just grand piano and vocals, and it was beautiful. And I said to him, do you think we should make a record? So then I went and chose my favorite songs from the middle 60s to the mid 70s, which I still adore that time. And so we made the album. And so we co-produced that album. We had these ideas. And so when this all happened, it was obvious that I was going to do it with Bruce again. And, it was beautiful because I took the demos to his house and we worked on the arrangements, and everything he came up with was exactly how I heard I wanted the songs to be. And so on that first album, I'd worked with Stephen Hadley, different drummer. But after that first album, Someday Love, I worked with Roger Bergadaz at times, and Shane Riley. I first worked with him where I was doing this little duo, and I said, I'd really like to do some shows that were heavy on pedal steel and voice and a bit of guitar, which was a little bit different. And so we did these shows together, and then from that came the recording of Birds, which is the Neil Young song. And I specifically wanted it to be pedal steel and voice, which was interesting because we recorded it and then I went, oh, it needs something else. It needs double bass or whatever in there to ground it. So then we got Stephen Hadley to come along. And so I've kind of worked with these guys on and off over the years. So yeah, they're friends.
Yeah. Would you consider the piano or guitar to be your main songwriting tool?
Well, as I said earlier, for me, this album and writing was absolute experimentation. For example, one day I would have this melody in my head, I'd have some lyrics, and I'd pick up the guitar and I could work it with the guitar. And then other times it was like, no, this song feels more piano. So I would play it on the piano. You know, playing the piano or guitar live for me is still a work in progress, but I can write songs on those instruments.
Yeah. Tell me about your guitar and piano. Is there a story behind how you acquired them?
It's a Martin Dreadnought Junior. It's a sweet little guitar, and it's coming back to my house this afternoon because I've just had a pickup put in it. So I plan to play guitar at the launch on a few songs. I'm working towards all of them. So that was a birthday present, actually, which was very nice. And the piano, that goes further back because that was bought for my son so he could play piano. So, you know, I don't own my house, and honestly, every time I have to move, that piano is a big thing to move. Yeah, but I love it. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah. When you were recording your last album, did you take any mental notes, any thoughts that you took into this album?
Uh, I think, you know, to be super relaxed is where it's at. So I was really blessed to record at Union Street Studio, and Roger Bergadaz and I worked on the vocals, and it was just the two of us in the studio, and there was no clock on the wall. So, you know, we could create that super relaxed sort of feeling. I think that's where it's at. And he certainly creates that in his studio.
Yeah. The track order, was that important to you?
Sorry, say again?
The track order of the album.
Yes, that takes ages. Just like a set list does when you're doing a live performance, you know. And, you know, I have the track order for the album, but the album launch I'm doing on November the 27th at Wesley, I thought I'd just throw that in there. You know, the track order will be completely different at that gig. So the track order, oh, you know, I think everybody does this. You sort of, you have one and you go, yeah, that works. And then you wake up the next day and go, no, that doesn't work. So that is another process of the recording process.
Yeah. And what about when the recording's done? Do you chuck it in the car and go for a drive and see how it sounds, and then put it on the home stereo? Do you try different environments?
That's exactly what you do. So you're given the test, you know, the test of it all. And the car is seriously one of the best places to listen to music, you know. So yeah, that's exactly what happens. And you have to keep going over it and over it and over it. Yeah. Same with the mixing process when you know, a record is being mixed.
Yeah. The car accident was quite serious. Was it difficult emotionally to get back on the horse and continue to create?
Yeah, thank you for that question, because I was unaware at the time of just how much I actually had PTSD, and it was quite bad, and I had problems with my neck. I had difficulty actually pronouncing four-syllable words for a while. And honestly, sitting at my piano or on guitar playing and just singing really brought me back. And the funny thing is, like, the first gig I did when I came back, it wasn't a small thing. It was a 10p. It was the Bobby Gentry show that I'd produced and put together. And it was put together for the Caravan Music Club. And it was big. It was like, it was me organising 10 players and doing all of the work. I guess in a way I didn't have to sing a whole night because there were lots of other singers. But, you know, it was a big thing. So yeah, I sort of jumped back into the frying pan for the first gig.
Yeah. So tell me about the album launch. Who will be in the band with you?
Well, it will be Bruce Haymes on keyboards. Shane Riley can't make it, so it's going to be Lachlan Bryan. And this is great because Lachlan and I work together in the Bobby Gentry show, and we sort of, he's the MD for it. So we've worked quite a bit together. And then it will be Stephen Hadley, and Roger Bergadaz wasn't available for the first single launch, which was with Magnetic Field. And so Tony Floyd has kind of, you know, jumped in, and so he's going to be doing the album launch too. And might have a couple of special guests, who knows?
Okay. So what's the grand plan? What are the hopes for the album and beyond?
It's a mystery, isn't it? What happens with the record, really? You know, after I've released the album, I might release another song off the album, or maybe I'll release that secret track that didn't make it onto the album. But I'd like to do a little album tour, you know, of these songs. Now, that's a great idea, but all of these things are very expensive. So it's always does get down to, well, can we do this? I'd like to do Melbourne. I'd like to do regional areas, and I'd love to go up to Sydney for a couple of shows. But whether I can do all of that will depend on finances as well.
Yeah. Well, the album Love Over Hate is out on November 7.
Yeah.
The launch is November 27.
Yep.
Leanne, Helen Ryder, it's been great to catch up.
Thank you very much, Greg. Lovely speaking to you.